Hurricane Joaquin has been downgraded to a Category 3 storm, but it continues to pound portions of the central Bahamas tonight. Good evening, everyone. I'm Altaviz Munnings, and welcome to this special late-night edition of the Bahamas Tonight, the National Report, as we continue our live coverage of tracking Hurricane Joaquin. We apologize for our late start, but we've got a lot of news to tell you about, but we have to start off with the latest details on the hurricane from our chief meteorologist, Basil Dean. And Basil, the latest weather advisory indicates that the core of the hurricane is moving away from the central Bahamas.
Alto, that is exactly correct. Finally, Hurricane Joaquin is moving away from the Bahamas at 11 p.m. this evening. The center was located at 24.7 degrees north, longitude 74.0 west. It is now moving toward the north-northeast at about 10 miles per hour. That position puts it about 60 miles to the north-northeast of San Salvador, making its way over the open waters of the Atlantic. And as a result of that, we have discontinued all watches and warning for the Northwest Bahamas, meaning the all clear has been given for the Northwest Bahamas. However, the warnings remain in place for the remainder of the Bahamas, and that is because we still have some tropical storm force winds affecting parts of the central islands, and until tomorrow morning early, we will give the all clear for the remainder of the islands. But the good news is Hurricane Joaquin is now moving away from the Bahamas. We expect an increase in that forward speed, and that will quickly move it over the Atlantic, and hence, as a result, tomorrow morning, you can look for the all clear. Alto?
Thanks a lot, Basil. Great news for the Northwest Bahamas. Well, the government assessing the impact of Hurricane Joaquin today, minute by minute, island by island. The Category 3, now 3 hurricane is said to have caused significant damage to several areas of the Bahamas, although final reports have not yet been determined by how much. Well, today the nation's leader assembled his team to determine what will happen next. Prime Minister the Right Honorable Perry Christie chaired a special 2-hour cabinet meeting here in the conference room at the office of the Prime Minister in Cable Beach this afternoon. Attending that meeting, his cabinet, senior government officials, as well as other officials, all discussing the impact of Hurricane Joaquin and how they will execute the plan to recover those residents that were affected by the storm once it leaves our vicinity.
We were fully prepared to meet whatever is necessary once we have the opportunity to ascertain the current conditions in the aftermath of the impacts on Acklins and Crooked Island and on the islands that are currently now being subjected to 130 miles an hour force winds, Category 4 hurricane, and that is Rumkey and potentially San Salvador.
The government is concerned about the chain reaction to islands that sustained the hurricane's strong winds and heavy rain.
It is very clear to all that there will be substantial impacts on our country's infrastructure, and therefore a major requirement on the part of the central government to be able to restore the status quo and to be able to bring our people back to the standard that they were used to.
We are mindful of the areas of Acklins and Crooked Island, Meguana, and even in Nagua, that they would have been under the gun for almost 3 to 4 days. And until this system is all clear and relief supplies can get to the islands, they can very well be almost as much as 5 days. And without a doubt, many of those areas are in need of relief supplies. With the assistance of OBAT and the Coast Guard, we are pledged as soon as we are able to carry some reconnaissance flights into those areas to check on those persons that we have gotten reports of who need some assistance.
Director of the National Emergency Management Agency, Captain Stephen Russell, also revealed Friday that the United States Coast Guard's 7th District in Miami, Florida, has offered to deploy 2 planes to assist with recovery efforts. Captain Russell also confirmed that NEMA plans to travel to the affected islands on Sunday. Although an aircraft was expected to travel to Acklins and Crooked Island 3 o'clock Friday afternoon, but due to the 60-mile-per-hour winds from the storm, the Met Office advised officials not to do so. Communication to the islands affected by Hurricane Joaquin was also a major priority for Prime Minister Christie and his government.
We were advised that there were certain persons in Crooked Island, in Colonel Hill and Cabbage Hill, who we did not have communication with, who was able to, using WhatsApp, get to their family in New Providence, who in turn communicated with Captain Russell and Nima. And so we've had a very proactive officer in charge of that district in Crooked Island, and we have no doubt that as we're speaking and waiting for communications to be restored, that every effort is being made to confirm the safety of those persons.
There are reports of destruction to homes and properties and infrastructure throughout the island so far. Again, those persons who are under the gun, I should say at this time, we urge you to exercise extreme caution, remain where you are indoor if you are secure, and do not try to venture on the outdoors for any reason. Again, we know streets are flooded and the winds are high, so please make every effort to continue to safeguard yourselves during the course of this exercise with this hurricane.
Now, our newsroom has been bombarded with calls all evening from concerned citizens on how the storm was impacting Long Island. We have also been trying to find out the same information, but we understood there was no communication there. We did, though, get an update from the Member of Parliament for Long Island, Loretta Butler Turner.
First of all, let me tell you that we have no communication from Long Island. Our communications went down last night at around 2 a.m. or early this morning, to be quite honest with you. The hurricane at that time had been hovering over the southern end of Long Island for some 24 hours, or 36 hours really. And then during the course of today, it moved to the northern end of our island. And there is no cell communication, and the satellite radios or telephones are not working. I can tell you that what I have discovered just from some private satellite phones and through information at meetings that I've had today, the entire island in the low-lying areas is under severe flooding. They're suggesting that many homes have been devastated. Persons have had to evacuate and go and live on higher grounds with other persons, other family members, friends. It appears that most of our electricity is down, and we have no cell towers. To be very honest with you, I don't know how phone communications are going to be restored given the fact that we've got such severe flooding. My understanding is that it's very difficult. Persons who have got that a lot of the roads are blocked, but we're going to do a flyover early tomorrow morning to try and assess the aerial damage. Well, I just want you guys to keep Long Island in your prayers, because Long Island seems to have been the island that has taken the greatest amount of battering. And fortunately, Long Islanders are saying they can't hear anything from ZNN, so they'd love to hear what's going on.
Well, in addition to the concern for residents on Long Island, officials from the Ministry of Tourism confirmed during a press conference early Friday afternoon that there are 10 tourists on that island. RCS Scatterly spoke with the Senior Manager of Communications at the Ministry of Tourism, Nakia DeVoe, who provided us with this update.
Director of Security Vincent Harris has been reaching out to our tourism representatives in the Family Islands throughout the day. We have, however, been unable to make contact with our representative, Dawn Simmons, in Long Island. Now, she made several calls to us via the satellite phone provided by the Ministry of Tourism. However, we were unable to hear her clearly. And when we attempted to call her back, we could not get an answer for her. Those attempts were unsuccessful. Now, Director Harris was, however, able to reach Inspector Rogers briefly around 5 p.m. He's the police officer with responsibility for Long Island, and he was able to give us a bit of information, but not as much as we were hoping for.
Okay, and do you have any? Can you share any of the information that you learned of?
Yeah, Inspector Rogers tells us that low-lying areas in Long Island are under 4 feet of water. Police officers are unable to access the southern end of the island, so we don't really know what's going on there. The last weather report we received for Long Island was that Long Island would experience hurricane force winds from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m., and then tropical storm force winds from 5 p.m. until tomorrow morning around 5 a.m. We don't have much more information than that. There have been lots of reports going on Facebook that roofs were flying off and lots of flooding, high winds, rumors of evacuations, but of course we can't confirm those due to the lack of communication to the island.
Okay. Now, it's my understanding also early today, Ms. Gibleroo confirmed that a number of guests are on the island. Do you have any idea as to how they're doing? Were you able to reach out to them?
Well, I know that there were 10 visitors, the count that we received from Dawn earlier before the storm was too severe on that island, 10 visitors. And they were all secured up to that last point when we spoke to them. We lost contact with Long Island yesterday evening sometime in the early morning. But at last report, those 10 visitors were fine. They were secure. And all of our hotels throughout all of the family islands have an emergency plan and they're prepared for these storms. So we feel pretty confident that everything is okay. And of course, we're praying for Long Island and all of the other islands. And we're just waiting now to hear back once the storm has passed.
Okay. Anything else you want to share, Nakia?
No, that's it so far. Just that the Ministry of Tourism is really reaching out to all of the islands, and we are trying to, not only are we focusing on visitor safety, we're also concerned about the residents, and you can check out our Facebook page, Tourism Today on Facebook, and also our website, tourismtoday.com. We're also posting lots of updates there and trying to keep everyone on top of all the information that we're receiving.
Well, from Long Island, we travel now to San Salvador, where we have some pictures that can truly show you the damage sustained there. Hear what resident Brunel Jones had to endure.
It's calmed down a whole lot. The rain has stopped, the wind has died down somewhat. But we're still inside, we didn't go out as yet. I've never experienced nothing like this in my life. While we were at my cousin's house, and we were just sitting there trying to go weed out the weather, and the roof just started to cave in. So when the weather was really down on us then, it was horrible. 10 of us, we had to try to get from her house over to the neighbor's house. So that's where we still are now, at the neighbor's house. I have been out earlier before the weather came down. I know the airport is it's in a terrible state. The whole security building is gone. Power is off. We don't know when we will receive power because the BC building itself has experienced extensive damage, very bad. A lot of persons have lost their homes completely. We have a lot of roof damages. We have power lines down, phone lines down. It is just disastrous in San Salvador right now.
We want to now take you down to the Turks and Caicos Islands, where we spoke with Father Bernard Bean about the conditions there.
We had some strong winds yesterday, actually the day before yesterday, and along with rain, and it got stronger yesterday. A lot of debris in the street, mostly trees, as we said, with the strong wind. Because of the rain, there's flooding in some low-lying areas. Some areas you can't get into, or you could not get into yesterday because of flooding such as Five Keys, Chalkstown, and South Dock, because there's one major road that we need to get access to all three of those areas. And that road was basically cut off because of flooding. Two-town area also experienced some flooding. Homes also were experienced some damage because of the rain and the persistent wind. The wind is still blowing quite strongly even now. Today was a little better than yesterday.
Well, our Chris Saunders had been hunkered down in Cat Island for several days, and we now want to check in with him. Well, we'll come back to that report. We don't have that for you right now, but we're going to go to Eleuthera, where our Charles Fisher is tonight. He has the latest from that island as well. I'm sorry, we're experiencing some technical difficulties right now, but we'll try to bring you those reports in our next segment. Stay with us. Our continuing live coverage of Tracking Joaquin continues.
This portion of the news is brought to you by the new Shell and Let It, designed for extra miles.
This portion of the news brought to you by McDonald's. McDonald's, I'm loving it.
Thanks for staying with us on our continued live coverage of tracking Joaquin. Well, our Chris Saunders had been hunkered down in Cat Island for the past few days. We check in with him now.
It's about 6:30 here in New Bight, Cat Island, where the rain has started to come down just a little bit, but the waves action, as you can see, has started to really pick up. This in New Bight was really calm most of the morning, most of the afternoon. It's only in the past maybe 3 to 2 hours that this has started to really pick up. Me and my cameraman Anton Brennan have been on the road from about 7 o'clock this morning from each end of the island, trying to see how Cat Islanders have been preparing for what seemed to have been a very long day. So the waves are crashing here on the eastern seaboard of Cat Island. It's about 10 o'clock here, and the wave action has started to pick up. The winds have picked up considerably since last night, and here you can feel the saltiness in the air. No rain yet, but it is only about 10 o'clock, so we're anticipating a lot of rain coming down, but you can see here the action is starting. We're here on one of the roads that leads from inland out to the sea, and this is a mangrove area. This water is coming over, and again, it comes all the way down, and it's starting to come over the road. So we're not going to take a chance going on that to make this an impassable area, but that northeast wind is really pushing it in. This area is probably going to be impassable quite soon with that water coming over. It may not look deep, but again, any road that is covered in water is a dangerous road, so we're not going to take that chance out here. We're here at Devil's Point, one of the most southern settlements on Cat Island, and as you can see, it's almost as if the wind and the crashing waves are dancing out there. Some of them seem to be almost up to 30 feet high. Now, we've heard some estimates that they have been over 30 feet high, but those look about 30 feet high out there. But this is incredible. Of course, that is the ocean out there, but it's incredible seeing the way that these waves are crashing, the winds whipping them up. But right here in Devil's Point, many people are getting ready for the storm. We're very close to the command center here in Cat Island, and the island administrator, Mr. Jackson McIntosh, has been preparing all day and making sure that Cat Islanders have been prepared all day for this impending system here. Now, apparently it started to pick up, and they're going to be ready. Throughout the night, they're going to be watching, waiting to see what happens in the aftermath as this storm passes. In New Bight, Cat Island, Chris Saunders, ZNS Network News.
Thanks a lot, Chris. Well, our Charles Fisher is in Eleuthera tonight. Here's his account of how the day went.
A major catastrophe avoided here on the island of Eleuthera, in Gregory Town to be exact. Police officers and fire engine officials were called to a fire in Gregory Town. Sergeant Coop explains what happens there.
Sometime around 6:30 today's date, officers received a report of a fire in the Gregory Town area. As a result of this fire, officers along with volunteer fires responded. When they got to the scene, they discovered wooden structure fully engulfed in flames. As a result, officers spring into action, were able to hold this fire and hold also a large bush fire that started to spread towards several homes. Thank God for the help of these volunteer fires and all other officers, staff members, and members of the public who were in the area who were able to assist in helping us to hold this fire to prevent anybody else from receiving any other serious damages or having to be dead.
Was the whole home occupied?
Not at the time. We understand that the person who owned this home was presently of the island. Officers made some checks. Nobody was seen. Nothing was found in the bubbles thus far. Officers still in the present stage of the investigation, trying to see if we can determine what was the true cause of the nature of this fire.
For the ZNS News Network in South Eleuthera, I'm Charles Fisher.
Now for a check on what happened in Ragged Island, here's our Vaughn Albury.
Here in Ragged Island in Duncan Town, there is no power. We've had no power since this morning. There's no telephone. There's no light. There's no internet. Absolutely, there's nothing here. But the people, they are hardy people. They are used to making it out on their own. What with me right now is Corporal Kellerico Burrows of the Royal Bahamas Police Force to tell us about the situation here in Duncantown, Ragged Island.
There's not so much breeze blowing at this point. All the persons on the island are in good spirit and there's no injuries. We're in communication with head office in New Providence as well as in Exuma. And I would have spoken with my superintendent just moments ago, and who's just given me some things to just keep in mind during this time. But at this point, all the persons are okay, and they're faring well. As Mr. Aubrey would have indicated, there is no water, no light, and no form of communication via the internet, mobile phone service, or telephone service at this point. Otherwise, all the people are doing well. We have no injuries to report. The captaincy is also still docked at Gunpoint, the northern dock, and they're here until the weather would have died out. So that boat is secured in the dock at this point, and the mailboat has just basically started to offload some of the mail and freight today to distribute to the residents of this island as a result of the skies clearing up a bit. But at this point, the weather is moving pretty favorably for us.
That was Corporal Kellerico Burrows of the Royal Bahamas Police Force. But I can also tell you at this time, there's been a silver lining. Just about 5 minutes ago, we saw some sunlight in the western sky. So we haven't seen the sun all day. So I know that the weather system is moving away from the Ragged Island chain. Also, a number of fishermen, core fishermen, they went out and checked their boats in the harbor here at Duncantown, and they went to bail out the water out of their boats. So they are about ready and prepared to resume for fishing as soon as the weather clears out. Reporting from Duncantown, Ragged Island, I am Vaughn Aubrey, PETRONAS Network News.
Well, after hours of trying to communicate with residents on the island of Acklands, the Member of Parliament for the Michael constituency, the Honorable V. Alfred Gray, said he was finally able to reach Island Administrator Harvey Roberts. Minister Gray also confirmed that OPBAT was able to go to the island where no casualties were reported. However, Mr. Gray noted that several homes and 2 of the shelters in the settlement of Snug Corner sustained extensive damage. Persons occupying those homes and shelters were taken to higher ground.
I was able to speak with the administrator in Acklands. He called me about 15 minutes ago, and he has been able to go in certain directions, but not totally all over Acklands. And what he was able to say was that there are about 7 or 8 houses which were destroyed in Snug Corner and Masons Bay. And, of course, every house along the coastline was affected by water damage, those which were not destroyed. So every house along the coastline was affected. And he was supposed to be going out in a dump truck, which is high enough to negotiate the water levels sometime this afternoon and give me a report. But everybody is well. There's been no injuries or loss of life, and that's the best side of the news. And they're doing their best to cope. He did say that the OPBAT helicopter did come in from Inagua, and they were on the ground as he had been speaking to me. And I'm sure that once they get back to Inagua, they will report to the Prime Minister as he has asked them to do.
From the island of Exuma, we spoke with the Member of Parliament for that island, Anthony Moss, who explained about conditions there.
One of the major problems that we have experienced over the past 2 days here in Exuma is during the high tide. Because of this time of the year, we have the spring tide. So now it's spring tide, and now we are experiencing high tide here in Exuma. So there are a number of areas throughout the Exuma Queens Highway where we're experiencing flooding from sea water. So again, we want to say to all Exumians, unless it is extremely necessary that you travel on the streets, kindly stay off the streets.
The Member of Parliament for Exuma also told us that the island was experiencing communication and electrical problems in certain areas.
I also wish to confirm that there are some telephone lines that are down in the Williamstown area, causing the loss of service there. I have been advised that as soon as the weather permits, technicians will be moving in place to try and rectify the problem there. In addition to that, BEC men have continuously been working on the lines for the last 2 days. For most of the district, power is now being restored. However, we continue to experience heavy winds, so sometimes there are again a loss of power, but they are continuously working at it. Evacuation plans have certainly been put in place, and I can confirm that we here in Exuma, this team is fully on board and working.
At 8:30 this evening, the National Emergency Management Agency is reporting that on the island of Rum Cay, 32 persons were seeking shelter in the clinic, and they are anticipating an increase in that number. At the time of the report, NEMA officials say the island was experiencing heavy rains with limited visibility, winds estimated between 90 to 100 miles per hour, heavy flooding, trees were down, roads impassable, lines and poles were down, dock reportedly destroyed, airport flooded, and personal homes were beginning to cave in. Also, there was no electricity there. Ackland's Administrator Harvey Roberts reported to NEMA that he encountered flooding specifically in Snug Corner and Masons Bay. 5 homes were destroyed in Masons Bay and 4 in Snug Corner, but there were no injuries to report, and all residents there were accounted for. The Red Cross informed NEMA that Long Island had no electricity, private wells were reportedly contaminated, roads impassable, and there was complete structural damage to many homes. Paul Turnquest in San Salvador reported that 3 shelters were occupied and the roof of the Zion Baptist Church shelter was blown off. Winds were reported between 130 and 150 miles per hour. Shelters were occupied on mainland Eleuthera and Harbor Island, Mangrove Key, Exuma, and Cat Island. NEMA officials say attempts are still being made to contact Crooked Island. Now, as the weather permits, and NEMA will be advising the public on an ongoing basis all efforts to bring relief to the affected areas. You're watching a special edition of the late night edition of the Bahamas Tonight, the National Report. Stay with us. We'll be right back. All vacation leave for members of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force has been canceled. All officers and Marines are to report to their respective places of duty tomorrow, Saturday, October 3rd at 8:40 a.m. Officers and Marines in New Providence, including personnel on secondment and study leave, are to report to the Coral Harbor Base for a hurricane relief briefing. Personnel are to come prepared for deployment to family islands that were adversely impacted by Hurricane Joaquin. Persons exempted from the briefing at the Coral Harbor Base are those Marines on duty at the Harbor Patrol, Port Security, the Airing Base, and military police and force protection units. The Bahamas Electricity Corporation reporting that island-wide outages remain in Anagua, Mayaguana, Acklands, Crooked Island, Long Island, Cat Island, Ragged Island, and San Salvador as a result of adverse weather conditions from Hurricane Joaquin. BEC teams also report outages in some parts of Exuma due to the storm's impact. Now, the Bahamas Electricity Corporation's operations in the northwestern part of the Bahamas have not been impacted by Hurricane Joaquin, while conditions in the southeastern and central Bahamas have prevented assessments, repairs, and/or restoration. Limited communication with some of the impacted islands and poor weather conditions have prevented full assessments in many of those communities. However, BEC officials say early reports out of Ragged Island indicate minor damage to BEC's distribution network there. Similarly, crews on the ground in San Salvador report pole damage as their main issue affecting electricity supply. BEC continues to advise that once the all-clear is given, a comprehensive assessment of the damage will be completed in all impacted islands. This will be followed by repairs and eventual restoration. Well, Met officials predicted that eastern New Providence will feel the brunt of Hurricane Joaquin on this island, and the members of Parliament for that part of the island offering this advice to their constituents.
And certainly their hurricane shelter in the Seabreeze constituency is the New Dimension Church, which is located on Joe Farrington Road. And so we would like for them to ensure that if it is that they feel unsure and unsafe about their residences or wherever it is that they may be at this particular time, that they find themselves to that particular shelter in sufficient time, and that they take along with them their certain personal possessions, including things like banking facility cards, things like perhaps passports, personal documents of identification, and that they also take along with them something to help to provide some comfort while they are in those shelters, like maybe pillows, blankets, reading material. If the kids have homework to do, perhaps they should take that along with them. They can, assist the children during that time.
The shelters that are closest to Yamacraw would be, first of all, Epiphany Anglican Church, which is on Prince Charles Drive, and also there's New Dimensions Ministries right on Joe Farrington Road, and I would like to extend that to all of the areas, the far eastern areas. I think it's important that whilst the entire, of course, Bahamas and New Providence secure themselves, because we know that that particular area will be impacted, that they must take steps to, of course, first of all, know where the hurricane shelters are and be ready to go to them in very short order.
Chief Meteorologist Basil Dean joins us once again in the Weather Center to give us another update on the track of Hurricane Joaquin. Hi, Basil.
Hi, Alto. At 11 p.m., the eye of Hurricane Joaquin was about 60 miles to the north-northeast of San Salvador. It is now finally moving away from the Bahamas at about 10 miles per hour. We anticipate a further increase in that forward speed later on tonight. As a result, the all clear has been given for the northwest Bahamas, but we'll hold out until about 9, 10 o'clock in the morning to give the all clear for the remainder of the country. But as of now, the all clear has been given for the northwest Bahamas. Maximum sustained winds has not changed, still holding at 125 miles per hour, making it still a dangerous hurricane. But the good news is it's pulling away, so we will see some decrease in the tropical storm force winds that continues to affect some parts of the central Bahamas. Within the next, say, 6 hours or so, you will see a certain decrease in those winds, and we should be back to some degree of normalcy. However, some residual showers will linger around, and that will hang around at least for another few days or so, but not of the flooding type levels. So, Alto, there you have it, the all clear in place for the northwest Bahamas, and the all clear coming up later tomorrow morning for the remainder.
Thanks so much, Basil. Well, that does it for this special edition of the late night edition of the Bahamas Tonight, the National Report. We encourage you, though, to stay tuned to the ZNS network as we will continue our live coverage simulcast on radio and television starting at midnight, where our team of reporters will be fielding calls and sharing information on the storm's impact in our country. Now, you can call toll-free. The number is 1-242-300-8255. Once again, if you want to call the ZNS television and radio network to give us advice or to tell us exactly how the storm is impacting your part of the Bahamas, you can call 1-242-300-8255. Once again, I'm Altaviz Muddings. Thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks for watching, and be safe, Bahamas.